but we'll get underway promptly here. We will begin our public hearings in just a moment after we take care of a few housekeeping items, namely the minutes from our 2 recent meetings. First are the minutes of our July meeting, which we have deferred action upon until we had an eligible quorum to vote on those minutes. Is there a motion for adoption of those minutes?
Move to approve the minutes of July 19 and August 30th Planning Board Commission.
Let's do them separately, if you will, because there'll be at least one abstention on the July minutes.
Move to approve the July 19, 2021 minutes.
Thank you. Second?
Second?
Discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. And abstentions, I count myself under the abstention categories. I was not at that meeting. So the July, okay. So we have a 3-0-2 vote. The minutes from July are approved, and we can move now to our minutes from the last meeting, which was August 30th. Is there a motion for those minutes?
So moved.
Second?
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The August 30th minutes are approved. We can now begin the schedule of public hearings for this evening. Just by way of introduction for anyone who's not familiar with the process, as each application is announced by one of the members of the zoning staff, we would ask the applicant or their representative to come forward to the podium here in the center of the room, provide your name and address for the record, and then a brief summary of the application. Feel free to remove your mask while you're making that presentation. It'll add in the clarity of the presentation. And then as you return to your seat, please put your mask back on. Following any questions from the commission members, we will invite members of the public who wish to speak in favor of each application to do so, and then we'll extend a similar opportunity for those members of the public who wish to speak in opposition to each application to do that. Where there are comments made in opposition, we will encourage the applicant to return to the podium to address the comments made in opposition. So, with that as background, we are ready for our first public hearing.
The first public hearing, good evening, commission members, Mr. Kulik. The first public hearing is SP 2108. This is a continuation from August 30th of this year. This is a special permit for a restaurant at 471 to 49 Westcott Street and 111 to 117 Harvard Place. RJ Westcott Holdings LLC is the owner, Shane Kelly is the applicant, and the properties lie within a business class A zoning district.
Thank you. Gentlemen, please proceed.
Thank you. Good evening, commissioners, members of the Office of Zoning Administration. As you will remember, my name is Dan Mevick from 206 North Townsend Street, and I am representing Clean Cuisine, the applicant tonight, as well as RJ Westcott. Before we get started, and since I have the microphone, I'd like to comment on the Office of Zoning Administration and thanking them for all their help. They put in a tremendous amount of time. They've spoken with myself, with the applicant, as well as the owner. And I want to certainly extend my appreciation to their professionalism and all the courtesies they've extended to all of us. With that being said, I think we're down to but a few deviations. And with that, I guess I'm working off of a sheet from Jeff. And the first 4 or 5 deviations deal with the parking lot in question, as well as parking driveways going in and out. And my understanding is that there was a special permit for this, SP-08-11, that addressed all these issues. The parking lot cost hundreds of thousands of dollars. It was approved, and I think all of those issues are contained in there and are addressed by that. So my understanding is that there are 2 remaining issues. One is an 8-foot buffer, and the other is a sign issue. We can take the 8-foot buffer off the table because my client has spoken with, I believe it was Heather, either in personally or over the phone. The owner is certainly willing to do that and put those up. There was some question, and not that I like to blame things on COVID, but certainly COVID interfered a little bit with getting that in place before, but it certainly is something that will be taken care of now. The other issue is a sign issue. My understanding is that signage is permitted, use wall and ground sign not to exceed 40 square feet. As a lawyer, we of course know, what does that mean? Does that mean combined or does that mean individually? But it really doesn't matter. All my client is proposing to do is to replace above the door on the transom, the glass above the door, which is 6.9 square feet, well within the limitations of the 40 square feet. Just remove the vinyl letters and insert the letters for clean cuisine. So we're asking for a deviation on that, or a waiver, I should say, so that they can just replace the sign that's there. Obviously, it's a new startup business. Cost is very much a concern, since the sign has to come down that's there, the vinyl lettering, to replace it with a smaller sign than what is permitted. It certainly, I don't believe, would be a problem. With that, if there's any questions.
Let's check and see. Any questions from the commission members?
Just a question. I'm sorry.
Interested if staff agrees that these things are settled.
Check, is there a consensus that the speakers just indicated is accurate in terms of the zoning administration's interpretation of the application, where it now, the revised application?
I will defer to Heather on any discussions between Mr. Mevick and the zoning administrator. I will offer that of the deviations, in light of the site plan handed out this evening,
No. The one person that needs it.
item 16 remains a deviation, 17, 18, and 19. With respect to 20, item 20A is no longer a deviation. So with respect to the parking lot, the driveway spacing is still a deviation, the driveway location is a deviation, and the on-site parking area curbing requirement is a deviation. And Mr. Mevick has addressed that with respect to the 2008 special permit for transitional parking lot. The sign deviation remains, and the side yard treatment requirement remains a deviation, but that also is tied to the special permit for transitional parking from 2008.
I would just confirm with the applicant the details of the green space and how that treatment is to be installed and with what materials.
Any further staff comments for clarification?
So I know we had a very long and protracted conversation about this the last meeting, but all of the issues related to the quote driveway is the driveway, the western driveway, and all of the issues that deal with screening and distancing from a quote residential zone is because the transitional parking component is in that residential zone, correct?
That is correct.
Thank you.
Then as follow-up, can you elaborate a little bit more on the screening feature that you just described?
With regards to the buffer, my understanding is that there are going to be 8-foot planters on both of the entrances into the parking lot. And those will be filled with topsoil and then tall grassy plants.
Sorry, with,
I'm sorry, so topsoil and then the tall ornamental grass.
okay.
So we have one comment from the city's transportation planner about some drawing that he saw shows those planters encroaching in the right-of-way, and I should probably do it on this. I cannot tell, even zooming in, if that's still the case, but have you addressed, are you aware of that comment? And has it been addressed?
Is
It
that-
does
is-
look like it a little bit.
When I zoom in on the drawing, it looks as though there's maybe a foot or so that extends into the public sidewalk. I think that might be what he was referring to. This looks like the property line, and it extends beyond the property line.
This is the property line, so it's this much into the right of way, it's in the property line.
So you just want to move it towards my
It
property?
looks like it should be even with the building.
Okay.
That's the property line, yeah. So Chris?
Yes.
you did he say that is a bad thing, or?
I think, as I recall the comment, it was either to pull it into the private property or to obtain an encroachment approval. Let me see if I can find it. The proposed planters must be located on private property and not encroach into the right-of-way unless the applicant will be pursuing a proper encroachment agreement.
Right, we're
just-
certainly not doing that. They haven't been built yet, so they will be
Pull it
set
back.
back
We'll set them back. Yep. And we'll set them back the.
so that
look
they're
good
not
with that.
infringing on the right of way.
Further questions for the applicant?
I don't have any question. No question.
All right, thank you both very much.
Thank you.
Are there individuals who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come forward, provide your name and address for the record and your comments. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the application? Please come forward with your name, address, and your comments. So we have no additional speakers. If the application is complete, the commission members have no further questions. I think we are in a position now to close this hearing that's been continued to tonight's meeting. So we will do that now and pause to see if there is a motion for action on this application, SP-21-08, a special permit for the restaurant on Westcott and Harvard.
I would move approval with a negative declaration noting that the transportation planner's conditions be met.
Second. Second.
Thank you both. Discussion? Discussion on the motion before us? If there's no discussion, all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? The special permit is approved, and we will move to our next public hearing. Thank you both very much.
Next public hearing is R 2145. This is a companion piece to the third public hearing, SP 2109. The re-subdivision is to combine 4 properties into 2 new lots at 906, 918 James Street, and 311 and 317 Green Street. Clinton Square Realty LLC and Triana Acquisitions LLC are the applicants and owners. These all lie within an Office Class A zoning district. The special permit is SP 2109. It's for a care home, 906 and 918 James Street and 317 Green Street. Clinton Square Realty LLC is the owner and applicant. And these also lie within an Office Class A zoning district. The special permit for a care home is, the proposal is to simply combine the 2 previously approved special permits for 2 separate buildings, but for the same care home that functions as one. And the re-subdivision is to facilitate that combination of the 2. And it came about because the applicant wanted to install a liquid oxygen tank element in the rear. And when we looked into it further, we realized that these have functioned separately, but logistically and logically together for some years. I don't know why. There are 2 separate special permits, 2 separate buildings, 2 separate lots, but these 2 companion pieces will help to facilitate the project and clean up, I don't want to say mistakes, but things of the past that should have been rectified by this time. So that's the short explanation.
More coherent approach. So as Heather indicated, and as we've often done in similar cases in the past, each of these applications requires action by the commission, but it makes sense to hear the 2 projects concurrently, just to understand better the context. The context of one informs our understanding of the other and vice versa. So we'll hear these together, but when it comes time for action after the hearings are closed, the commission will act separately on each application. So if the applicant is here, please come forward, provide your name and address and an overview of these 2 applications. So after all that intro, apparently, were we expecting the applicant?
Yes, we were.
And so perhaps they're delayed, so we can take that into account. We will still offer the public a chance to comment on this, but it sure makes sense to hear something from the applicant if they're going to appear, in order to have information on which to base comments either for or against. So let's just put this one on pause. We will continue through other hearings, and if the applicant appears, we will afford them the opportunity to make the presentation. If the applicant does not appear, we will still offer the public an opportunity to speak either for or against the 2 applications. So, what else to do without the applicant here, but we'll do the best we can. That'll move us to our next hearing, which is on South Geddes Street.
The next application is SP 8925M1. This is a special permit modification to a previously approved car wash, and this is to expand the special permit use to now include a light-duty motor vehicle repair at 634 South Geddes Street. Mitchell Saccharin is the owner and applicant, and the property lies within a business class A zoning district.
Thank you.
Good evening. Bill Pitcher from Pitcher Architect, 124 Fiegel Avenue, Syracuse, New York. We are asking for the modification of the special permit for the car wash to include light vehicle repair. The activities are proposed to be tire repairs and oil changes. The light vehicle repair activities will have 2 employees from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday. And the car wash, which is presently 24 hours open, will be open only from 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Monday through Saturday. So there's a reduction in hours. If you go to drawing L3, you will see the signage that's proposed. And we're keeping all of the existing signs, and we are proposing 1 new ground sign along Geddes Street. That particular sign is double-sided, 25 square feet on each side, which is a total of 50 square feet, which exceeds the 40 square feet limit. So we're asking for a waiver on the square footage of the ground sign. And that's sign, I think, S7.
Provide a rationale for the needed waiver for the sign.
Well, we are permitted 2 signs according to the analysis because we have 2 street fronts, and we're only asking the waiver for 1 sign on 1 street, and it's consistent with what's along Geddes Street in terms of the size of signs. If not, we can revise and downsize if the commission so desires.
Just for the sake of clarification, the noted deviation is for more than just a 50 square foot ground sign. Special permit uses are allowed 1 wall and 1 ground sign, neither to exceed 40 square feet. There are 2 special permit uses, so you could argue 2 wall signs and 2 ground signs. However, for a total of 4 signs totaling 160 square feet, they're requesting 7 signs, but only a total square footage of approximately 81 square feet. But it's not just the ground sign, it's the total number of signs as well.
We ask for a waiver for the number of signs. The signage that is there, S1 through S6, those are the existing signs on the building, so we're just keeping those. Now, you were handed out tonight a revised site plan, sheet L2, and this has last-minute changes from planning and city departments. So I think we have gathered up all of the comments about city departments and have them on this plan. We have 2 portions. One portion is what the applicant wishes to do, which is basically fence the rear parking lot to gain control of that parking lot. Right now it's an after-hours group meeting place, and the applicant wants to be able to lock the fences and keep people out of the parking lot at night. So basically the rear parking lot has a combination of a chain link fence on the south boundary line, which is a boundary to another commercial property. Along Amy Street, which is on your left, that will be a 6-foot-high vinyl solid fence along the frontage of Amy Street. There's an existing wood stockade fence on the north, and we would be extending that fence up to the other commercial building on the north property line, and then placing 2 gates at the front of the building so that you have complete enclosure. And presently there are no doors on the car wash bays, so we would be putting in overhead security screens. So that would totally lock off the rear parking lot. The rest of this is basically in response to the various comments that were made. If we look on the left-hand side of the plot plan at Amy Street, the city wanted a new sidewalk. We're indicating that new sidewalk be installed. There was a comment about drainage off of the parking lot. The building itself is uphill from Amy Street, and the entire rear parking lot drains towards Amy. And what we're doing is we're putting a drainage trench in front of the fence, and that'll be filled with stone, with riprap, and that'll contain the water running off of the parking lot into temporary retention. The dotted lines you're seeing there are the things that are required by the car wash special permit of 4 cars lengths to each wash bay going in and 2 car lengths going out. So we have more than sufficient space for the number of queued cars. When we get to the right-hand side of the plot, this is the Geddes Street entrance. It's one way. We're basically reducing the width of the driveway to 18 feet, removing excess asphalt, putting in curbs, and although our curb cut would still be 30 feet, but I believe that's correct for that. Then we're also putting curbs along the front of the existing pavement facing Geddes Street. The comments about cars going back and forth between adjacent properties. On the bottom of it, the south side, there is a highway guardrail which exists, which separates the 2 parking lots of the 2 commercial properties. And on the north side, which is the opposite side, on the top, we're putting in curb and ballards. They also requested that we remove various concrete and asphalt debris from within the right-of-way between the parking lot and Geddes Street, and that'll be done. And the last thing is that the street sign, the ground sign, is shown S7 at the front of the parking lot. The building itself, the repair part of the building, is basically 1 car width wide, and you could probably fit 3 or 4 cars inside the building. There's only 1 car lift within that, and they're only proposing oil changes and tire repairs. That's the end of my presentation. If you have any questions.
Thank you. Questions for the presenter?
One of the comments from the transportation planner is that an ADA compliant lead walk to and from the sidewalk and the main entrance, protected from obstructions, is required. Suggested at the northern property line.
Yeah.
Is that what's labeled as new walk along Geddes Street?
If you look below the driveway, that's the new walk, because if you go north of the driveway, above the driveway, there's an earth mound there. The elevation changes about 3 or 4 feet, so you'd be going up. So I moved the ADA down south of the new entrance.
Additional questions for the applicant?
Staff, just to make sure we're lining up. For staff, the applicant is saying tonight that they're putting up enough bollards, enough ways to limit access in and out and limit the cross-traffic between buildings. Does that satisfy the office? Does that take care of the condition that you were talking about?
We would have the transportation planner review that.
The ballards are spaced at 5 feet apart. A car can't go through.
No other questions, thanks.
I would note that he did make a comment about driveway on Geddes, which you have under the 24 max that he notes, except again, at the curb, it's 30, but that's really a function of the fact that it's not a right angle entrance,
Right.
it's angled.
And
So-
it's also part of it, keeping it to the 18 feet. That's a very congested area where Grand comes off of Geddes, and you have stoplights and a lot of traffic. So I wanted to leave a reasonable driveway that people could quickly and easily get off of the main street into the parking lot.
Additional questions? Good. Okay, thank you very much. Are there individuals who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come to the podium, provide your name and address, and any comments that you have. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the application? If so, please come forward. See no additional speakers, I think we can close this public hearing.
Hang on one second. So we have county planning board comments that I don't think made it into your agenda. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. So the county planning board made a comment that to improve walkability in this area and the aesthetics of the site, landscape screening is strongly encouraged along South Geddes Street. So if there, let me just check, see what you got.
You repeat that one more time, Heather, what it said about landscape.
To improve walkability in this area and the aesthetics of the site, landscape screening is strongly encouraged along South Geddes Street. So I'm looking at some of your bubbles here, Bill.
It's basically going to be grass.
Okay. So I think,
It's existing lawn,
Yep.
both sides of the property and both adjacent properties.
so the county is encouraging this board to encourage you to put in some screening in those areas. So I'll just,
Is it intended as screening or more in terms of just improving the pedestrian environment by making it landscaped?
it looks like, prefaced by, to improve walkability and aesthetics, landscape screening is strongly
Screening, they
encouraged.
said.
So to screen the cars and to make it a more pedestrian-friendly atmosphere.
So you would be looking for 4-foot high plantings?
Well, I'd say it would be whatever the commission suggests.
I think you could do it with a combination of shrubs and trees.
Okay. We will make those changes to the drawings in the application.
Thanks for bringing up the county board's comments. So after having noted the comments from the county planning board, we can close the public hearing and entertain a motion for action. This special permit, SP 89-25.
Sorry, Steve, did you ask for speakers?
He did, but the comments were made. We could ask again since.
I'm sorry.
So one more time, if there's anyone who would like to speak in favor of this application, please come forward to offer your comments. And if there is anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the application, please come forward with your comments. So we appear to still not have any speakers. And we now had the comments from the county planning board and further clarification from the applicant regarding those comments. So we will close this hearing and see if there's a motion for action on the special permit.
Question of staff, it appears that of the 4 waivers in the staff report, the only one, in light of the revised site plan, the only one that's still in play is the one regarding the signage.
21 remains a deviation. The bollards may be offered as justification for waiving the requirement, but the requirement is still to provide curbing. But 19 and 20 have been corrected.
And curb shall be provided along all edges. So that would mean essentially everywhere it says edge of asphalt should be a curb or be bollards, if that was their argument. Jeff?
That is correct.
Okay.
Motion for consideration.
Yeah, motion to approve with a negative declaration, that the applicant honors the request to have the landscape screening. Oh, sorry.
And your motion includes the granting the 2 remaining waivers?
Correct.
Okay, thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Discussion on the motion? All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? So SP 8925M1 is approved. We'll move to our next hearing. Thank
The
you.
next public hearing is SR 1610M1. This is a site plan review antenna to modify an existing rooftop antenna array at 1320 Salt Springs Road. Lemoyne College is the owner. Chris Boyce of Pyramid Network Services LLC is the applicant, and the property lies within a residential Class B zoning district.
Thank you. As the presenters are coming forward to the podium, I will just note at the beginning here that I will be abstaining on this item because of my affiliation with the college. So please proceed with your presentation.
Thank you, Chairman, Board, staff. My name is Nate Vanderwall. I'm with a law firm of Nixon Peabody, Rochester, New York, 1300 Clinton Square. With me this evening is Chris Boyce of Pyramid Network Services, the consultant engaged in connection with the project. And we're here this evening to present to you this project as was set out in this packet of materials dated September 10th, specifically with respect to this modification project to the existing rooftop facility located on the residential hall on the Lemoyne College campus at 1320 Salt Spring Road. Again, this is an existing facility originally approved by the city through zoning back in, I believe, 2017. At that time, this project was approved for a 12-panel antenna and related equipment project. As I've reviewed these materials, it appears that up to this point, only 6 of those antennas had been installed. But again, it was approved for a 12-panel antenna. You'll recall I was before this board at that last meeting, and we talked about a similar upgrade modification project. Same idea here. Continuing involvement of the network. The technology has changed. The Verizon Wireless's macro facilities are being upgraded both with respect to its existing 4G network as well as in preparation for implementation of the 5G network that's coming down the road. And that's why we're here today. The 6 existing panel antennas will be replaced with the newer models, the newer technology. There will also then be adding 3 or one to each sector of the, I believe they call them a VRSO1, which is in essence the 5G transition antenna, roughly about a 35-inch antenna.
and then a small clip-on in each sector CBRA antenna. It's about 11 inches by 8 inches, I think, are the specifics. The existing facility are all painted to match the building. These new antennas will similarly be painted to match. And so with the replacement of these antennas and the existing, or the addition of these new antennas, again, bringing it up in line with the original approval, although these new antennas being added are smaller than those originally approved. But again, all equipment will be on the existing mounts and painted to match the building on which it is mounted. There'll be no change in height of the antennas, still at the same center line height as the existing facility. So given this project's location in the residential B district, it is subject to this board's site plan approval. And as detailed in the application that's been provided, given the scope of the project is an eligible facilities request under the Spectrum Act and its implementing regulations, which we can talk about if you want, but that's a lot of legalese too. So, but happy to answer any questions regarding the project specifically between Chris and I, or any other questions this commission may have.
Great, thank you. Questions for the presenter?
All set, thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Are there individuals who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come forward. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the application? Please come forward, provide your name and address and your comments. So we have no additional speakers. The application is complete. We're in a position then to close the public hearing. We'll pause and see if there's a motion for action on the application before us.
I move approval for the negative declaration.
Thank you.
Second.
You discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? And I will abstain as noted previously. The site plan review is approved. Thank you for the presentation.
The next public hearing is SR 2104. This is a site plan review for an antenna to install a 3-sector rooftop antenna array at 118 to 122 West Seneca Turnpike. Valley Vista Houses, Inc. is the owner, and Dish Wireless LLC is the applicant. And this property lies within a residential Class B zoning district.
Hi,
Evening.
my name is Melanie Dorn. I'm from Tilson Technology, representing Dish Wireless. So we are proposing 3 antennas, 1 per sector on this building, and this is subject to the public hearing because it's in a residential zone. So I submitted the zoning compliance letter that shows that this is meeting all the design requirements, which includes being over 30 feet above grade and not increasing the height of the roof more than 20 feet. Dish has entered into a lease with the building owner, and the scope of the project is seen on the construction drawing. It's just the antennas and related equipment and cabling across the rooftop.
You submitted some simulation photos too. Thank you.
Oh, no problem.
Questions for the applicant?
Ask the more obvious, your technology is a little bit different. This is actually your contract with the building itself to provide services within the building.
No, so it's, Dish has recently become a wireless carrier, so it'll be for wireless consumers like a customer for Verizon or.
So this is not the direct satellite subscription that's just for the building. This is actually going to deal with being towers or being radios for wireless
Yes.
customers.
Yep,
Okay, thank you for clearing that up.
yeah.
Additional questions? Okay, thank you very much. Are there individuals who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come forward. Is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the application? If so, please come to the podium. Until we have no additional speakers here, we'll declare this hearing closed and entertain a motion for action.
Second.
Thank you. Both. Discussion on the motion? Then all in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? So this site review is also approved, taking us to our last public hearing for the evening.
Yes, SR 2105 is also a site plan review for an antenna. This is to install a 3-sector rooftop antenna array at 947 Pond Street. The Syracuse Housing Authority is the owner, and Dish Wireless LLC is the applicant, and this lies within a residential Class B1 zoning district.
So it's me again. Also, again, from Tilson Technology, representing Dish. So this is.
Can you say
Oh.
your name again? Melanie Doran, is that it?
Yeah, Melanie Dorn, D-O-R-N.
Thank you. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
That's okay. So this is for 9 antennas, which is 3 per sector, and it's the same scope of work as the one we just did. So it's providing consumers with wireless coverage and the related equipment that will be on the rooftop. And Dish has also entered into a lease with this building owner. This also meets the design requirements as seen in the zoning compliance letter, in that it is 30 feet above grade and doesn't increase the height of the building more than 20 feet.
Thank you. Question for the applicant?
No.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So once more, is there anyone who would like to speak in favor of this application? If so, please come to the podium. And is there anyone who would like to speak in opposition to the application? Please come forward and share your comments. Additional speakers will close this hearing and entertain a motion for action on this site plan review.
I move approval with a negative declaration.
Second.
Discussion on the motion? All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? This too is approved. Thank you for both presentations. And
You can if you want to, it's new business. Actually, yeah, you can if you want to, in case there's questions, but typically new business items they stand on their own. Sometime, I don't know, are you from around here?
No, I'm from Portland, so they don't stay.
Are you going back to Maine tonight?
Oh, no.
Oh, okay. All right, so why don't you just stay? It will be another maybe 15 minutes or so. Okay.
come this way, all this way,
Come
just in
far.
case. So we have one old business item tonight.
We kept those 2 public hearings that the applicant did not show for.
Yes.
Right, no one else has entered they lost people, so,
I would say that it looked like there was someone that wanted to speak, so I would not recommend taking action because if there could be more and we want to afford that opportunity, unfortunately, he came and.
I think what we do in this instance is simply hold the hearing open. if that gentleman should return and wishes to comment, apparently he couldn't stay longer, we can give him that opportunity tonight, and if the applicant happens to show up later, we can ask for that presentation, but still hold the hearing open, because none of the public that was here earlier had a chance to hear the presentation. So,
I agree.
I just have a logistical question then. So if we were to hold these till the next meeting, the individual from the public who wanted to speak, however that individual is notified, will that happen again?
Yes.
Okay, great, thank you.
I think he's a nearby neighbor. I think he had a card with him that was probably mailed from
Okay.
the,
Our office.
wherever it originates.
Yeah, ours.
Yeah, I think that was of interest to him. Okay, so we'll see if anyone appears before we adjourn tonight related to this case, and if so, offer them the opportunity to speak, but in either case, maintain the hearing open. So that'll bring us to our old business item before we get to new business.
Okay, so old business item is SR 1409M3. This is a site plan review modification to modify the elevation and signage at 720 Van Rensselaer Street. Core Van Rensselaer Company 3 Incorporated is the owner. Colby Clark Myers Creek Brewing Company is the applicant. It's in the Lakefront T5 zoning district. This is the pre-existing, previously approved building called the Iron Pier, and the applicant did submit some examples of internally illuminated signs within the lakefront district to our office. They did not submit an alternative plan. This board asked for examples of when other internally illuminated signs have been approved by this board. And I took that to mean not necessarily like this board, but the commission in general. So we did go back, not too far, but we did go back a few years. The applicant submitted something, the preserve at 405 Spencer Street, and identified an internally illuminated sign, but unfortunately that was not approved. So the fact that it's there is not legal.
Wait, before you go, so are you gonna do something about that?
If you'd like, we can
Yes.
talk with code enforcement.
Please.
Okay.
Thank you. I think it's incumbent upon us to follow up, because if not, another applicant's gonna point out the exact same sign, and if it's not an approved condition, why let everyone think that it might be? So let's just clear that up.
Put us in a weird spot, preserve.
The 824 to 832 Spencer Street, the Little Gem Diner, that was a pre-existing non-conforming sign. So this board didn't approve it as a new sign. 807 North Geddes Street is Harley Davidson, and the same thing happened there. This was one of the very, very early ones when project site review and the lakefront regs first came into existence, so we were kind of feeling our way. The commission did approve 5 signs, and one was a pre-existing internally illuminated ground sign. And 3 internally illuminated wall signs, and this is close to 690. So it's not in the area. I wasn't sure if you wanted all of lakefront or in the immediate area, but they submitted this to us, so we felt it our obligation to follow up and make sure we looked into that.
Although, as you pointed out, that's at least 10 years before the one they noted for the preserve that this body apparently looked at. And at the beginning of the regulations going into effect.
we investigated others in the area, and we found the Aloft Hotel has an internally illuminated sign. And then there was another hotel that was supposed to be built right next to it, if you recall, that you also approved an internally illuminated sign there, but it was never built, and they did not ask, I think they withdrew their extension request, if I recall. So, there's that one. That's at 328 West Kirkpatrick is a loft, and you granted a waiver to allow for internally illuminated signs. 328 West Kirkpatrick is the Element Hotel that was supposed to be built next to it that was not. And that is null and void, that approval, because it ran out of time. And 401 Solar Street, you granted a waiver. This is an office building, a 2-story office building that, and retail building that was never constructed either. That approval is also null and void, but you did grant a waiver to allow 12 internally illuminated wall signs, and I believe those were for the storefront retail spaces. I don't know if we have that plan with us.
Is the Aloft Hotel a rooftop?
It's on the wall, and I'm pretty sure it's
Is it just the,
just the letters, yep.
yeah, and that's what they're,
The other hotel.
proposing
They're proposing
to
the letters.
Myers Creek.
I see.
is just the letters.
Okay, and I believe it's the same thing with the storefronts, if I'm not mistaken, that it was just the letters and not a box, that the whole thing was lit up, yeah.
Right.
So that is the information that we found. And I hope that answers any of your questions that you have.
So with the exception of the law hotel, there was no similar signage approved by the commission.
Well, there was, it just that those two buildings were not built.
So, what you said.
Materialized.
null and void.
Right.
Yes, and I believe they did not, one of them, they decided not to ask for an extension, and I can't remember if it was the Solar Street one or not. I found that in the file.
For the whole project.
Yeah, so neither of those got built. So yes, I believe that they have, you've been consistent if they've been internally illuminated with lettering.
Well, we did it once.
Well, no, 3 times.
I mean,
There-
at the
no-
storefront level, we've done it once.
Oh, yes,
The hotel one is up towards the.
yeah, 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 yeah.
But in terms of storefronts, it's just the one that is now null and void.
Yep, and those were letters, and there were 12 of them. So there must have been 12 storefronts,
6 on either side, if I remember.
6 on each side.
And they're null because they've all been, the null ones have been allowed to expire, is that?
Yes, we have, I don't think we've received requests to extend, time extensions on those. So.
And in the case of the Gem Diner and the Harley Davidson, those signs existed prior to the lakefront design guidelines going into effect.
I can't be sure about, I know for sure that the Harley Davidson ground sign was pre-existing. I don't know about the wall signs. But I do know, I'm pretty sure those are only letters as well. If I could bring that up. Oh.
But if that was from 2005 or 6, and again, in over,
Yes.
math is, more than a dozen years, we've not approved them except for whatever happened the night we considered North Gaddis, that we considered Solar Street. It sounds like we've been fairly consistent.
For letters. Yes, for letters.
letters, it's only the one time we did the letters, because the hotel is, the name of the hotel, is it not? I see what you mean, it's not a box, they're individual.
Right, it's just that the letters are illuminated, not the,
It's not a
the
box.
sign, it's the whole sign itself, yes.
Saying not a box or a badge or a shield, we don't illuminate an entire background, we're just talking about letters.
letters, right, for this.
But they're proposing, there's a sign, yes, it's more than that, isn't it?
No, that's just the letters, and they moved it because there's an apartment behind
Didn't want to
it
have light from another source,
into the apartment.
the apartment.
Yeah, so the solution was to make the sign internally lit, I believe move it down, and not have the light shine from the outside in.
But the whole orange thing is lit, it's not as though they, each individual letter of the name of the restaurant is.
I think, let's see, if we look on
I think there's a sample.
page,
219.
sorry, 219? With the black background here.
Right.
Yeah, it's just the letters. And the,
Well, it looks like the
M.
shield. It looks
Yeah.
to me that the shield is illuminated as well.
Still a box, though, is it not?
It's not just the letters.
Yeah, the whole shield is a thing, is a structure. That's the way I'm looking at it in the color drawing above it.
Yes, but it's only, the illumination is only the
Yeah, it would be
letters.
on that black picture.
And
So the red part is not illuminated, just the, what, just the letters are, that's how, and it says that somewhere, or you're reading it
No,
that way?
I'm looking at it.
And the little logo above it.
Right, and the ruling thing.
Well, I don't know if it's gonna help or confuse, but, the sign plan just before the photos, there's a gray cloud that talks about integrally LED illuminated sign with stencil cut aluminum faces. I'm not sure what that means.
Well, if you look at the section, there's a 5-inch deep aluminum cabinet.
let's look at the application. Okay. Well, it says partially internally lit. The signs are partially internally lit. So if the proposal, if they're submitting this on page 219, that just shows the letters in the nighttime, then that's, you have to take that as,
I guess I'm not reading it like you are. The red should not be, I mean, if I look at the cross-section above, it's a 5-inch deep aluminum cabinet. We don't have additional detail, but it implies to me that the entire red box has lighting to it. And then the letters are mounted on the face of that, the stencil cut face, acrylic push through. I don't know.
So it sounds like we need to ask them, because some of us might.
well, or you can,
We have different views.
or you can make, I mean, what does this commission desire? Is it, if you would like to approve anything that's internally lit, you could just approve the letters. Catherine?
It's essentially saying that the letter, light's coming through, so the letters are the things that show the light. We're saying the rest of the background has to be dark, so that the light doesn't come through. I mean, if that's,
It's just not illuminated.
if that's the easiest way for them to do it, if it's some kind of a stamped-through letter, I'm just saying, I think that's what we're all trying to say. The intention is for it just to have the letters
Yes.
light up, not the entire box.
And what was the intention of the design guideline when it was first put in here?
Yes, it's unclear.
Yeah, was it no internally illuminated signs? Because then we've not been consistent when we approved whatever we approved in the past.
Well, they've all been
Notably
waivers.
the storefront.
Yes, they've all been waivers or deviations that you have.
Right, but was what was the intention when someone,
Probably because the lakefront was supposed to be a new urbanist community, walkable community with not a lot of glaring signs. And they were intended to be small and at scale with the pedestrian experience and not glaring from so that a vehicle.
was it aesthetically from the construction of the sign that, again, if you look at any one of these paintings or photographs on the wall, if that was a sign box, it would have depth to it, it would stick out from the wall of the building. It could be a variety of shapes and sizes versus if we just had SYR, the letters that would spell out Syracuse, so let's just say as an example.
Yes.
Which would not be as big of a structure on the face of a building, which is somewhat separate from the issue of how much light there also is, that this thing is giving off. So that's why I'm asking if the idea was we didn't want these big structural signs on the building, then yes, just doing internally lit letters is a very different thing.
Yes, I don't think the size is the issue, because you approved this before. You approved a very similar size sign in a very similar location. And it just was a generic said sign, but it was externally lit. Really, the major difference here is that they're requesting that it be internally lit. So
Right,
I just want to point that out.
Right, but internally lit signs tend to have a depth to them that a flat signboard wouldn't, because you're putting all
Yes.
of the electronic stuff in there. So I didn't know if that was part of the issue, that we didn't want these big three-dimensional things tacked on in every storefront, whereas an individual letter might theoretically be much less obtrusive. If that's not the issue, and we've been approving internally lit signs, we've committed, it seems like. No matter whether it's letters or a box. It seems like we've committed to internally, we've waived it before.
I have a question. Could we just potentially get clarification from the applicant on exactly like what it's gonna be, like in the sense of box or not box, internal and
And
external?
the red
I think that's probably some of the debate here is we don't 100% know what it is, and we're trying to answer a question that we don't have the right like resources for.
I do know of, I'm just giving information. I do know of their urgency to open, and the sign is one of the last things that they are,
waiting for.
yeah, waiting for. So I guess I will turn to my attorney on this, but if you have enough information to make a decision and you know what kind of decision you'd like to make, you could do that this evening with conditions if you so chose, to be consistent with the things that you have done before.
That's correct, and you can place any reasonable condition on your action that could be conditioned on what your assumption of what the sign is, or if you'd like it changed potentially. So I think that would be a good course of action if you are in a position to decide tonight.
Right, at least, so,
I was trying to see if I could find a photo of the sign, because they said they wanted the same sign as their other location.
I see.
And of course, there's none of the sign, just the logo, not as a sign.
Where is the other location? I maybe could do a Google Earth search of it.
Oh, you could try that.
Or like,
Yeah,
in the
it's
search, maybe just put in actually like,
33 Rippleton Road, Cass. It might be sufficiently back from the road, though, that you can't.
Can you do a Google Earth? Yeah, if you give that address to Jeff, he can look it up.
Could you please spell the name of the road?
Rippleton, Rippleton Road, Cazenovia. Is this the former Empire Brewery?
That's right.
So it might sit back too far that there won't be a Google Earth Street View, but in any case, just like I said, Googling images.
I'm sorry, Chris, the number?
Did I say 33? Sorry, hang on a minute. I'll go back. 33 Rippleton Road, Cazenovia, 13035. I think George is right. We should just ask them to clarify. I was hoping we'd have,
because if we make a decision, I think it's important to keep in mind that this decision will dictate other ones going forward.
Right, which is why the suggestion by Catherine is you should do what you so desire, regardless of the information, which will also help them get moving and won't have to wait another 3 weeks, no matter what the decision is, because they could still have a sign.
So typically, in the past, were we, I guess, allowing or not allowing the illuminated signs? And like, what was the shape, size allowed?
So those were the examples that I gave earlier.
Oh, yes, correct.
You
Some
have,
were done without us knowing, I think you said?
oh, just one was installed contrary to what you had approved. You approved externally illuminated and they put an internally illuminated sign.
Just for the purpose of discussion, talk about how we approach it. Lakefront is a particular district, a particular area, but when we looked at any other building having an illuminated sign, whether it was downtown or in one of, I'll give you the comparison. Blink Fitness wanted to be in the space next to Wegmans. Wegmans has a sign that illuminates the letters, but the banner is dark. So then Blink Fitness did the same thing. They illuminated the letters. There's a device inside the sign,
Go fast.
but the banner is it's a dark background.
Okay.
So I think what we're saying here is that we want that to be the intention, to have a dark background and the lights illuminated, and maybe that symbol, the smaller symbol, but not the entire box.
Gotcha.
I think that's what we're trying to clarify.
Right, you just, so that could be your motion, just have the letters illuminated.
Correct. I think that would answer it. Just leaving it at.
Can't do that, they then come back to this body and say, this is what our special permit was for. But I mean, I think at least we can act on it tonight.
And given the fact that you have approved a sign before that's very similar, so that may help.
Remember they told us they wanted the canopy and everything to be the same as their other location? At least the one image I found, it's not what they're presenting to us, but maybe this is an old image. Oh, there's at night.
So yeah, I think we.
Someone want to formulate a
So
motion then?
I'm going to formulate one of my long deliberative motions.
Good.
Favorite.
In under 30 seconds. But again, for the reasons we've discussed on the record, where in other specifically zoned areas of the city and other areas where we've said we will allow illuminated signs where only the letters are illuminated, the background is dark. I'm going to make a motion here to grant the permit, move to approve of the negative declaration, granting the permit with the condition that, again, the box itself is dark, the letters that are punched out and the symbol in that sign may be illuminated, but the rest of the background will be dark. That's the motion.
By symbol, you don't mean the red shield.
Right, not the shield itself.
It looks
There's
like there's
a,
an M above it,
Squiggle or
like
something.
an MC, Myers Creek, I think that's, yep.
letters, including that symbol that I think is their trademark, I'll call it that, but not the entire shield. The shield will be dark.
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. Then, all in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? So we reached a conclusion on SR 4.
Clarifying, George, you were absent at the last meeting, is that? Okay, so yours would be an abstention for this because it was closed.
Okay.
Okay, that's just for the minutes purpose.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, George.
It dispenses with our old business, and we
Sorry, Melanie. Okay,
surge forward to new business.
new business, SR 2106, a site plan review for an antenna to install a rooftop antenna array at 801 and 833 University Avenue. Syracuse University is the owner, Dish Wireless LLC is the applicant, and this lies within a planned institutional district, and this is right. Okay, it includes installing and co-locating a total of 6 antennas and 12 remote radio heads in 3 sectors, with 2 antennas and 4 remote radio heads per sector, with a center line of 106 feet and an equipment platform. It complies with Part C, Section 1, Article 7 of the zoning rules and regulations. However, it does require site plan review as it is within the planned institutional district.
This is new installation, not replacement or upgrade, correct?
Co-locating, it's co-locating, yes, unless Melanie has other information. Yes, that's right.
It's a good thing you stayed.
Yeah. Want to make it worth your while.
So we do have a representative here, or someone certainly knowledgeable, so if there are questions, let's ask her. And perhaps we don't have any questions, in which case,
All set, thanks.
is there a motion then?
Motion to approve with a negative declaration.
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
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 Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? SR 2106 is approved. Thank you very much. This is
3S 2107 is a 3-mile limit review in the town of DeWitt. This is the Oliver Home subdivision to realign 2 properties into 2 new lots at 6769 Old Collimer Road and 5 Collimer Circle. James Oliver and Rick Albright are the owners and the applicants, and this has been reviewed by Onondaga County Health, County Planning Agency, and Engineering, and there were no issues.
Okay, so as of this year, with our new procedure on 3-mile limit cases, this has been reviewed by the bodies Heather just noted. Objections from city engineering. Is there a motion for approval?
So moved.
Discussion? All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? That case is approved, and we have one more 3-mile limit case also in DeWitt.
Yes, 3S 2108, a 3-mile subdivision review in the town of DeWitt, Beryl Dingley subdivision, and this is to divide 1 property into 2 new lots at 7110 Woodchuck Hill Road. Joshua Hines Trust is the owner, and Christian Danaher is the applicant, and this was reviewed by the Department of Engineering, Onondaga County Department of Health, and the County Planning Agency. And also this does, oh, okay, this does not require review by the county board, so scratch that. And there are no issues.
Just a question?
Yes.
No, no, did you ask a question?
No, I just presented, and now it's your turn.
Oh, okay. Because I don't think, I don't have a question.
Okay. Like, there was so much silence
Yeah,
there, I
that's
didn't
why
know
I
what to do.
Yeah.
We're waiting for Steve to ask first.
So if there are no questions, the engineering office has seen this and given it the green light. County Planning Board has done the same. Is there a motion for action on this other 3 mile limit case also in DeWitt on Woodchuck Hill?
Motion to approve.
Second.
Discussion. Say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? Yes, 2108 is approved. And that completes the new business, and we move on to discussion.
Yes, all right, so first discussion item is a proposal by Lemoyne College, and this is at 1135 Salt Springs Road. And if you remember, this board has approved what we call changes of occupancy in the past, where you have a non-conforming use and someone wants to change it to another use that's not permitted, but this board finds that it is either less obtrusive and intense than the existing non-conforming use, or just as intense. So this site is a triangle, and it's a residential A1, and right now the Lemoyne College bookstore is there, Barnes and Noble bookstore, and there were 2 restaurants that this board approved in the past. Those restaurants are now moving out, and Lemoyne is requesting an educational college entrepreneur center land use there. And I thought it would be beneficial to hear from Lemoyne College, so we do have a representative here this evening, to discuss the actual land use and what it is and who's using it, in order for this board to see if it is eligible to even pursue another change of occupancy and take the 2 retail or restaurant spaces out and replace with this new proposal. So I have included the recent change of occupancy and the actual regulations for non-conforming uses in here, so that you can get a better idea of kind of what your role is. So tonight it would be after Mr. Dietz from Lemoyne presents the actual land use. If you think that it is eligible for the change of occupancy, you could authorize that tonight for hearing next time, because we already have the application and the information in our office that has been submitted. It was not a clear-cut kind of thing, and I thought it would be beneficial for the applicant to come forward this evening. So thank you for being patient and for waiting. Yes.
Acted tonight, it would just be to authorize a public hearing, so the public would.
Yes. Yep. For the October meeting. Yes. So.
Slash get a better understanding of what the what the land use will be.
Exactly. So there is a letter here, but also I just thought it would be helpful that you were here. So yes,
So,
please come to
so
the
as
podium.
coming up to the podium, let me also indicate at the outset here, whatever determination the commission makes regarding this application tonight, and any action that comes at the following meeting, I will not be taking part in those because of my affiliation with the college. So, unless I will not be part of that decision-making process, but if I can illuminate anything or respond with information or questions, I will happily do that, but won't be part of that decision-making. So with that, thank you for your patience, and
Okay, I'm Fouad Dietz. I'm the campus architect. I'm the director of planning and construction for Lemoyne College. Over the past, year and a half, delayed because of COVID, we've been working with the city and the town on a neighborhood planning grant, which is working in conjunction and support with the new zoning rules and changes that are upcoming that just haven't taken effect yet. And in that neighborhood planning grant, which we just got the draft of today for review, the area between us and Springfield, Salt Springs, going to Edward Smith, and Firehouse, our plaza, Sewell Library, and the several houses that we own there to Fayette Boulevard have all been, well, number one, we identified them in the proposal as for Lemoyne outward-facing programs. So as opposed to just, for instruction and students, they're targeted to be for our outreach programs that interact more with the community, so they're more on the periphery of campus as opposed to being right on campus. In addition to that, the new zoning that's upcoming, that's not here yet, identifies that whole zone in conjunction with that study to be multi-purpose use. So, we're not there yet. The particular application that Heather has been graciously helping me with, which has a very long history here, I got all the files on it about 2 weeks ago, goes way back, and it was an effort by us to sort of come in and tidy up the neighborhood and take this convenience store and turn it into something more. We purchased it, we called it Lemoyne Plaza. We thought it would be a great place for our bookstore, and a pizza, and Camp's Pizzeria, Dunkin' Donuts, and this board at the time approved use for retail and restaurant as a way for community engagement and cleaning up that corner. And so we dressed it up architecturally, we opened it up, and unfortunately both of those, to correct Heather's statement, past tense, they have both moved out. They had been working rent-free, and rent-free was not good enough for them to stay and maintain their business. The community support just wasn't there for those endeavors. So fast forwarding to where we are today, one of the programs that we applied for it's not a Red Sea grant, I'm blanking out, a grant for with the state, was for this entrepreneurship program to take the plaza and turn it into that, and to relocate some of the lounge spaces and so on into the adjacent firehouse, which we just recently also purchased as part of that grant. So as you can see, we're already sort of marching forward with this whole process of taking these buildings and finding the uses for them that make the most sense for us to interact with the outside of the college. So in this case, we're talking about the entrepreneurship program. Lemoyne has started to work towards having an entrepreneurship minor. The Entrepreneurship Center serves serves exactly 36 students in the space. I believe, was the plan distributed?
Yeah.
Okay, so in the spaces, there's a sort of a primary initial lounge space off the lobby, which is called the collaborative space. That's where students sort of hang out, they bring their friends, they talk about the things they're developing, and then there's the actual, what's called the collaborative workspace. And that serves more like a classroom where there's instruction, there may be a speaker, and workshops where you could break tables down and have group work. In addition to that piece of the program, there's a makerspace program where there's a 3D printing lab, there's a wood shop, there's a virtual reality lab with green walls to, put yourself in place of whatever it is you're inventing and, teleport yourself there. I'm showing my age already. I don't even know what they're talking about. And so the model spaces and the finishing room and all that are for people to take a product that they're developing, have the 3D printer make it, take it to the finishing room, touch it up, etc. There's what we sort of call a public component to the space and its use. For us, it's multimodal. So one program that will use the makerspace is a program called Erie 21, which serves underprivileged city school district high school students who have an interest in a technology future, cybersecurity. They do a summer program with us. They stay on campus so they get the feel and the comfort of being at college. And then 5 days of that program, they spend using the makerspace to understand how that technology works and all that. So that group is an incidental, what we call a public group outside of our student body that will use that for 5 days. Additionally, in May, we have something called the Shark Tank, which is when our students in the business school they have investment ideas. They also, some of the entrepreneurs are trying to sell their ideas to potential funders, and business owners, coaches, et cetera, come in, and some choose to fund some of those projects. So there are all kinds of presentations that go on during that 5-day period at that point. So public is invited there. Additionally, we'd like to have our career services center work with employers and these entrepreneurs to hook them up. So therefore, there's also a conference room where people can meet, not only to pitch their ideas, but potentially to get employed. Our hope also is that there may be on occasion workshops that are hosted as part of the Entrepreneurship Center, where some members of the public that are interested could sign up to come and attend as something that we do that's outreach, whether they're from the Tech Garden or the Sandbox or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. So there is that kind of aspect of sort of being open for certain events and things like that. Obviously, the building itself is open for Barnes & Noble from, I believe, 9 to 6, except in the summer when they have shorter hours. And then the rest of the time, the building is on card reader access at the exterior doors, so it's not really just a thoroughfare, even though, you know, we say it's open, it's et cetera, but it's open to our people unless you're invited or coming to attend an event. And that's my presentation, because I know you guys are tired. I don't want to take too much time, but does anybody have any questions about what I just sort of put out?
It sounds better than restaurants.
Yeah. So,
Pizza and Dunkin' Donuts, yeah. Well, I mean, if it was successful and everybody was there and the community was there and we were having jazz night there, I mean, wouldn't that be great? But unfortunately, it's just not what happened.
so the 2 times from the proposal, so the general public, I would say, is allowed access, whether if they're invited, and also to use Barnes & Noble, correct?
Right. I mean, Barnes & Noble is open right now. I mean,
Okay.
anybody can come in and go shopping at the times during the day when the doors are open to do that. The actual makerspace spaces and the entrepreneurship, you really have to be invited. I mean, we're not just turning over hundreds of thousands of dollars. It's actually $700,000 worth of equipment with just an open door policy. So, you know, either it's a program or a partnership. You know, these partnerships just, you know, come and go and turn. We're trying to renew the grant with the state for the Erie 21 program because we think it's a really good thing, and we just invested in building this computer lab for them that they use all summer. So, you know, when Linda Lamora is quoted saying, you know, we want this to be open to the public, we want to generate excitement and bring people in, I think, you know, what to us open to the public is beyond the student body, the faculty, and the people of Lemoyne. What that actually means is these partnerships and collaborations that we have.
Okay. Okay. I don't have any other questions.
Okay. So the task for this board is to, if you agree, it is, in our eyes, it's ready, it's a complete application, and it is ready to be referred out to who it needs to be referred out to, so you could authorize it for a public hearing for next meeting, which is on Tuesday, October 12th, because of the Columbus Day holiday. Yeah, well, you can add it when we get to the authorizations, we can add it, but maybe you shouldn't leave him in suspense.
Threshold decision is the proposed use less intense than, equal to or less than the intensity of what was there before, or higher? And then if the determination is yes, it's equal to or less, then we'll add it to the authorization list, which is our next, no, not our next, we have one more item in between.
Yeah.
But it seems like that. we should go
Or you
on
could do
record.
the authorizations right now, if you wanted to. It's up to you.
Well, I would move that we have enough information that we could add it to the agenda.
Okay.
And if that's good enough for get us rolling, then that's what I move.
Second, I second that.
Okay, discussion on the motion? If there's no discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? And I will go on record as abstaining. So we'll add this to our authorizations for the 12th, Tuesday, as Heather noted, not a Monday. And we'll,
Okay, thank you
See
for
that.
your patience.
yes. So we have an additional discussion item.
All right, so this last item is discussion for the draft scope for 910 Madison Street and the letter from, the scope that was prepared by the applicant, LMP Syracuse Property Owner LLC, is in your agenda. This draft scope is up for discussion, and you had asked that, well, Chris had offered to lead the discussion, and her comments are being passed out now. So I will let Catherine speak more about this as the attorney and what your task is this evening.
So the task today is essentially to discuss the scoping document and your comments on it, whether it's appropriate as it was provided, or any changes that you would suggest after it's finalized. That's sort of the next step in the scoping, or sorry, in the seeker process will be the draft environment, or the DGIS process. So what we're looking for now is, if you've had time to review the scoping document, just a basic discussion as a group, and Heather can sort of compile that into, is that what you were planning, into a letter, or?
Yes, so as a potential involved agency, because in the course of the matter of things, this might come to you as an appeal for the certificate of appropriateness. It's the only way it would come to you. I will compile your comments and give those to the Board of Zoning Appeals, because their time frame is until the 31st.
Yeah, so I should have clarified that a little bit as a reminder that the BZA is lead agency here, and because of the potential of this board having review authority, that's why you're informed, and your comments are welcome from the BZA to the BZA.
So just to review the process, if the BZA, once the BZA goes through the seeker process, and they consider all impacts, proposed mitigation, et cetera, if the BZA were to approve any of the requests in front of them, then this project would then move to the Landmark Preservation Board for review. If the BZA denies everything that's in front of them, is that it? For the proposal as it stands?
For the variances, yes, that would be their last stop, but if it is approved, then it goes to the Landmark Preservation.
Right, but if the BZA were to deny all the variance requests, then they basically have to rethink their project?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and one thing just to bear in mind is, so the seeker process is sort of just can be thought of as like a separate, it's intertwined, but as you know, they will still have to consider the variance requirements. So there's going to be that hearing as well. And they'll consider the environmental impact as well.
And again, then in that process, if BZA approves some or all of what's before them, it would then go to the Preservation Board.
Yes.
And if the Preservation Board, if they approve everything, then nobody comes to see us. If they approve with conditions, it's possible that some of the conditions could be appealed to us. Or only if the Preservation Board denies that.
It's a denial.
Only on denial, okay.
So if they approve with conditions, it's still between them and the applicant.
I've never seen that before, and you always throw these questions at me. And it's late. No, I think
that this might be something to be prepared for.
Yeah,
The last I saw of this, which was in some public document like the newspaper,
let me look it up.
it could be that they would just deny it outright, but if there was, I mean, we often do conditions, and I don't remember what the ordinance says about that. Okay, well, while you look that up, since I wrote this, I will just give two sort of general points. I feel that the scoping document is fairly limited, and I realize that that might be intentional for any number of reasons, but I believe that it would be better to broaden the scope of the draft environmental impact statement to look beyond just historic resources and look at neighborhood character. And although they give a little bit of a nod to transportation issues, it's sort of barely a nod, and it would be more enlightening to have information about impacts on existing traffic patterns, existing traffic volumes on those neighborhood streets. I don't recall what their proposal is for parking, but if they're putting X number of cars in a parking garage, how does that relate to Madison, Walnut, and University in terms of their capacity now versus what they might have? Most of these purpose-built student housing projects develop their own private, quote, mass transit by offering a trolley or a bus. How does that impact, again, Madison, University, and Walnut? When one looks at the physical dimensions of those streets, if you start throwing in bus stops where there aren't bus stops, what does that do in terms of, again, how traffic moves on those streets? So again, impacts on neighborhood character, and then transportation and circulation related items should be addressed as part of this document. And then the only other point, and this comes from my background, having worked for the State Historic Preservation Office for a very long time, the seeker process is usually set up very streamlined to tell folks alternatives should be the no action alternative. What would happen if we never did this project, which I've never understood why that's there, but anyway, that's one. Then usually an alternative site, what if we did this project someplace else, and not someplace else like another state, but if we did it on a different piece of property in this general area, would there be different impacts? And then there should be alternate designs, and they reference, what did they call it? Alternative site layout. And to me, that could have been the same amount of demolition with the same amount of new construction, but just in a different configuration. And what really should happen with a historic preservation property is that you look at adaptive reuse of the historic resource as it is. If you do adaptive reuse, but then you build something, you build some additions, or you do maybe a little bit of demolition and new construction. So the scoping document should ask them to look at that level, those levels of alternatives, as well as an alternative site. So, and it doesn't seem as though, I mean, maybe they're going to do that, but the scoping document doesn't indicate the level to which they will look at alternatives. So it would probably save some time to convey to the BZA that that should be something they look at, as opposed to doing a draft environmental impact statement and then not looking at those alternatives and then being forced to go back later and do it. It'll just add to the timeline.
So I think just
All right, I think we need a motion.
Two, and I just offer if anyone else, Chris has done all the work. but
I-
if
It
anyone else-
wasn't, it really wasn't that much work, but.
Well, you're more familiar with it perhaps than others of us, so.
I do want to just point out that I didn't realize this when I sent it. The paragraph at the very end is actually from the seeker handbook. And so that was the third point. I just realized I didn't make it. So in environmental impact statements, one doesn't often think of the environment to include social and economic factors, but they can and they should be considered. So with a private project, as opposed to say a government project, like putting in a sewer system, the private entity will often argue the economic benefits of doing this, and that those often outweigh whatever you're doing. So we always used to say, yes, we're gonna ruin all the dunes on the seashore, but we're gonna put up this great tourist attraction and it'll make everybody a lot of money. Well, okay, maybe, but is that a need? Does this community need a tourist attraction? Do we need, more tax dollars, sales tax dollars, or whatever? Those are legitimate things to consider when you're doing the trade-off with destroying the sand dunes, but we're getting all these great economic benefits. So in this case, they've mentioned, or they loosely refer to certain benefits, but they don't really address the need. So yes, there might be some tax benefits, but is there a need you're addressing in this? Another example, using the sewer system project as an example, yes, this might be a disruptive project and maybe there are some long-lasting environmental impacts, but having a sewer system sometimes is seen as a greater need, so we'll deal with whatever those negative impacts are. So if there's a need that they're addressing, they should be asked to document what that is.
Be explicit about it.
Yes, they should be. So that again, if the loss of the historic resource is okay because they're addressing some great need that the community has identified, or that these benevolent developers have identified for us, we should at least know what that is, so anybody who's reviewing the document can make that comparison and decide, is this unavoidable impact worth it because they're addressing some need? Okay, I'm done.
I did find that section regarding certificate of appropriatenesses. I'll just read it.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna read it.
Oh, do you want to read it?
Yeah, it doesn't matter to me.
You can
Okay,
go ahead.
so you're right. So it says, any determination of the board which either denies a certificate or which authorizes the issuance of a certificate subject to conditions may be appealed within 10 days to the planning commission. So either or. I just have never seen conditions, so that's why that kind of like threw me off. So I apologize for that, but it's right here.
I don't have a perfect long-term memory of the board in this community, but it seems to me that most of the appeals have been for all or nothing cases. And again, I don't know that they'll look at this and say, sure, this will be all grand if it's only, I don't even know how many stories this is anymore, but if it's 11 stories and they say, gee, if you make it 9, we'll be happy with it. And everything else we approve, it seems to me that the project sponsor is going to say, yeah, well, no, we want those extra floors, so we got everything else we wanted, but now we're gonna appeal that one piece. So,
Okay. So Rebecca kind of made a motion. I think we should.
I agree.
Yeah, so I would make a motion and vote that, of the comments that you would like to go to the BZA.
These form the basis of our comments in the seeker process relative to the 910 Medicine Avenue proposal. And did I just make that, or am I giving you words for you to make it, or it doesn't matter? You can do it. That's fine.
Okay.
Hold on a second.
Okay.
And before we vote, are there any other thoughts or ideas or concepts that anyone else came up with that should be added to what Chris put together for us? I think it's a pretty comprehensive list, and I love the notion of focusing on need.
and not to include in this, but maybe more for staff's information, something that happened not frequently when the State Preservation Office was doing stuff like this, in terms of mitigation measures, there have been projects that were fairly destructive in terms of historic cultural resources, and part of the mitigation was that the project proponent had to invest in adjacent historic resources. The one that I remember best is a cogeneration plant in the Hudson Valley that ruined all of the historic view sheds from state historic museums and historic districts in a variety of towns. Whoever did the cogen plant, I don't remember who it was, but they had to develop a grant fund that anyone in the view shed with a historic property could apply for funding to improve their historic resource, because there was no way to not see this thing. There, you could not have put in enough trees or fences or whatever. And it happened in New York State, so I'm assuming there's case law that allowed that to happen, because I remember reviewing projects that received money.
What was the name of the?
It's a cogen plant, and I think, Catherine, that it's maybe near Kingston. I know it can be seen from Olana State Historic Site, which was designed specifically for all of those magnificent, there are windows that were designed with lead glass detailing to literally frame or create a picture looking down the Hudson Valley. And now you can see the cogen plant in it. But there were also small communities that had those kinds of views and vistas, and they got money to do storefront renovation or put a roof on. But it might be worth looking at, because if in the end, someone's looking for mitigation, and you know, the mitigation is they're gonna use gray colored brick, so that might not be considered enough for demolishing 2/3 of a historic complex. It might be worth looking at that and folks taking that into consideration for reasonable mitigation. And I know there are definitely other projects like that nationally. So anyway, yeah, I can't remember, I can't take credit for that, but I remember that we were all very excited when it happened, and I think it was also used for a lot of federal highway projects as well.
Other thoughts about any other aspects that should be incorporated into our comments beyond what Chris is there?
I mean, I'm okay with it in the sense of, in a nutshell, it's given, in my opinion, it's considering the little guy in this, as far as the community. So I think like Chris is on the right track, and I stand behind it. Considering like transportation and how it'll affect the neighborhood, characteristics and build, I think those are really like vital points that we should really consider. So I'm with you, Chris.
All right, then, another discussion, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions? So you'll prepare the letter and send it and share a copy with us?
Yes.
Once it's in? Okay, thank you. So, is there any other
Just,
business other than
We
authorizations?
did have those two that were gonna be held till the end of the meeting.
Oh.
And I assume that will be holding until next time.
I guess there's nobody to ask if they're here to represent the applicant. We have an empty room except for us, so that remains open, both of those.
So just add it to the next time.
Yeah. So next time we have 4 presented here, plus the Lemoyne thing becomes the 5th one, and then we have the 2 from early this evening, numbers 2 and 3. So that gives us a total of 7, I think, if I counted right.
Yes.
Or 12. So is there a motion to authorize those 12, excuse me, 12, where did I get that?
7.
7.
Not-
Carry the 2 multiplied by 4, okay. Those 7 hearings for October 12th, that's where I got the 12 from.
Move to approve.
I'm moving a second.
Second.
No, you're second, okay. All
Come
in
on, I
favor?
scratch this out.
Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, say nay. Abstentions? Is there a motion to adjourn? Second, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Those opposed, say nay. Any abstentions?
It's along a little bit.
Next meeting is a Tuesday, not a Monday.